So today we're going to be talking about the characteristics of living things. The first question we have to ask ourselves is, what is biology? Biology is the study of living things. So whenever we're talking about any term in biology, we have to first be able to define it. So in terms of defining a living thing, we must determine what type of characteristics it might share. So here are the 8 characteristics of living things. If you can remember the simple acronym S charged, then you'll be able to remember all 8 living things. So in terms of those 8 living things, stimulus, cells and organization, homeostasis, all the way to DNA. The characteristics of living things entails that an organism must be able to do all these different things in order for it to be considered living. You want to make sure to add this to your notes. The first characteristic of living thing that I want to talk about is that organisms are made up of one or more cell. You can have a unicellular organism like bacteria that's a single cell versus something that is multicellular that has many different cells. So we as animals have trillions and trillions of cells. So we would be considered multicellular. Organisms also need to be able to survive in order to do all the different metabolic processes that go on in our body. So in order to do that, we need energy. So we have 2 categories of organisms in order to be able to get energy. We have autotrophs and we have heterotrophs. So autotrophs get their energy from the sun in order to make glucose. Glucose is a sugar that plants use in order to be able to get their energy. This process of taking that energy from the sun in order to make that sugar is called photosynthesis. They take that sugar glucose and then they convert it into something called ATP. ATP is synonymous with energy. Whenever you think of ATP, I want you to think of energy. And they do that in a process called cellular respiration. We are heterotrophs. We consume other things in order for us to be able to get energy, and we consume things from our environment. So we take those things that we consume and we convert all those different molecules into glucose in order to make that ATP. That process is called cellular respiration. But the important thing to note is that plants do both cellular respiration and photosynthesis, whereas we only do cellular respiration. Organisms must be able to respond to stimuli in their environment. So, in terms of these factors in our environment that elicit a response, those different things could be things like light, temperature, sound. So, whenever we're thinking of light, that could be an example of where a plant needs to bend in order to reach the light. In terms of temperature, we may want to move out of the sun whenever it's really hot outside in the summer. And if it's too loud, we may choose to cover our ears with our hands in order to make sure that we're able to dampen that effect. All living things must also be able to reproduce. So we have 2 different types of reproduction. We have sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. In terms of sexual reproduction, we have the sperm and the egg. The sperm and the egg are our only 2 sex cells. And in order for our 2 sex cells to be able to divide, they go through a process called meiosis in order to make more sperm and more egg. What's interesting about sexual reproduction is that they produce genetically different cells. So all the sperm and all the egg are genetically different from one another. Now, in asexual reproduction, that occurs when we have one parent cell that divides and produces identical cells. That is going to be called mitosis. So in mitosis, which is number 5, that would promote growth and development. So cell division results in growth by mitosis. So an example of this is when you have a person that grows larger. So whether that person grows larger over time because of what they're consuming, or just due to natural processes, you're going to have that increase in size. Now, in terms of development, so development's a little bit different than just simple growth because you can have something that becomes more complicated. So, when you have something like a frog that comes from a tadpole, that is going to be considered development because all these different complicated things happen in order for that frog to be able to develop into a frog from that tadpole. Many things happen to you guys as well. So you guys develop from a baby into an adolescent. So all of those different types of secondary sex characteristics start to develop whenever you are an adolescent. Another characteristic that living things have to do is they have to maintain homeostasis. So homeostasis is maintaining a relatively stable internal environment. So in other words, there's got to be some balance that occurs. Now, what's different about this from a response to stimuli is that homeostasis is involuntary. It's not something that we can control. So when you're hot from having played outside, your body is going to naturally sweat. We can't control how much we sweat unless we were to move away from what is causing us to be hot. So that's going to be the response to stimuli. But the sweating itself is going to be an example of homeostasis. We must be able to adapt over time. So organisms that do not adapt over time will eventually go extinct. So in terms of evolution, evolution is a gradual change in a population of organisms over time. So in order for a population to continue, the individuals don't evolve, but the actual population itself is going to show a characteristic that is more advantageous than other characteristics in that population. For instance, we have this bird that has white feathers. Well, why does it have white feathers? It has white feathers because it allows it to be able to be camouflaged in their environment. And so those birds that did not have this adaptation are going to die off. So over time, that population of what we see, we consist of only these white birds. All things must have a universal genetic code. So all living things have DNA. That DNA passes on genetic information from one generation to the next. So this is the reason why your brothers and sisters may look very similar to you. And so that DNA is going to be passed from both mom and dad, where mom gives a little bit more than 50% and dad gives a little bit less than 50% in order for that DNA to make you you. All right, so that's the lecture for today. What I would like you to do is to check on Schoology, and there should be an assignment posted on Schoology where it talks about the characteristics of living things. So I would like you to complete that on a separate sheet of paper. I would also like you to watch a video that goes through viruses and determines whether or not viruses are living or non-living things. Make sure to turn in the assignment and make sure to also turn in your notes. So again, guys, if you have any questions, make sure to send me a Schoology message or an email, and I'll make sure to get back to you. Miss you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.